morning. Welcome to Friday. I guess technically, if you're on the East Coast, it's noon time, but I'm still in Mountain Time, so it's still morning for me. But um, today we're gonna go over Parallel Alpha. If you've never heard of what that was, or you've heard about it, but it might feel too complicated, we're here to sort of help you out and give you a little introduction. They came out with some big news this week and some roadmap information, and basically we're going to try to explain it to you guys as easily as possible. So today we got John and Chris. So John, how's it going this morning?
Doing good. Glad it's not snowing here anymore.
Yeah, it's been snowing the last few days, which has been kind of a bummer. Then and Chris, this is I believe the first time we've had you on a stream for Lucky Trader. So welcome in. Glad to have you here. How's it going this morning?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Cool. So yeah, let's get after it a little bit. For those who don't know, Parallel Alpha is kind of one of the most anticipated games, I'd say, in just the crypto space, NFT world. So, John, could you just give people a quick recap of what Parallel Alpha is?
Yeah, so Parallel Alpha is going to be a NFT trading card game on the Ethereum blockchain. The actual game, as I've read, won't be played on the Ethereum blockchain, so gas fees won't be too bad in that way. Uh, they released a lot of the staking mechanisms and details regarding the game earlier this week in the Prime proposal. So it'll kind of be, if you've ever heard of Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Hearthstone, it'll be somewhat similar to those games, a digital online trading card game.
Yeah, and then so Chris, what sort of stands out in this game compared to, there's obviously other games that are coming out in NFTs. Some of them, we've done a few different streams on ones that are based more around like questing and building up levels on your characters. So why do you think Parallel's sort of way more hyped than these other ones?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you've got the aspect, I think, of like Pokemon. So first of all, you got the aspect of collecting the cards just like Pokemon. And you think, if you look at Pokemon now, how much like first edition cards are going for. So I kind of think in the future, like if you have Parallel Alpha cards now that, the first ones that came out, and Parallel becomes a big game, it's like having the first Pokemon cards. And then like the unique thing from a gaming standpoint, I never played any TCGs, but I know a lot of people do. And, there's the whole tokenomics thing around that with the Prime token that they have, where you win matches and you get awarded this Prime token, which also, has, governance benefits to it and, can be traded. So it's a really unique thing coming out here with, I really haven't seen anything like this before with NFTs.
Yeah, and just like the art on the cards,
oh, yeah,
people seem so
crazy.
Amped about it. Maybe I'll bring up some of them, but when they first came out with, I want to say it was one of those things where a lot of people had never heard of it before. It might have been their second drop where people all of a sudden are like, oh, what's this? Like, this is super cool. And didn't really know what it was all about. But then people started digging into it, got more information. This is one right here, the Reclamator, and like a lot of them have these little QR codes on them as well. And that's something that has been coming to NFTs a little more, I'd say. But in general, like you can see in here, this is a count of 3,000. Like a lot of them, it's edition sizes, which there's probably like, I don't know, are they up to millions of cards at this point, or the potential to get to millions of cards? But people are still paying a lot for them. They're very excited about the game. Like some of these, I'm sure we'll get into, but some of them are lower edition sizes, obviously rarer. Those ones are coming out and higher prices to them. and people are really excited for those ones because of like the price action. But then there's a lot of cards like this one that might have a better use in the game, but it's a higher collection, so you can like buy up multiple. It's something that we don't really see a ton on Ethereum specifically, kind of what John was alluding to earlier. Like to have to even buy this card that's 0.029, like you might end up paying about the same in gas fees. So that's one thing that I think harmed it early on. But let's sort of get into the prime proposal that came out this week. So do you want me to bring that up, John, or
Yeah, that would
can you
be
just
great.
give a quick little like overview of what the prime proposal was, why they came out with it now?
Yeah, so Chris, have you read the prime proposal and Echelon papers too?
I haven't like read it from top to bottom, but like yeah, I've read sections of it and all the kind of breakdowns and highlights of it.
Yeah, so Lou, I'm not sure how much you know. I know Chris is pretty in tune, but the game they had their first pack drop this past summer, and then in fall was pack drop 2, and then they're planning on pack drop 3 coming up here in Q1 of 2022. Uh, but everyone's been kind of speculating and waiting for more details regarding the game. They released the cards, not a ton of information, right, Chris? And this kind of clears up a lot of that for most people. Even though they don't have all the gameplay mechanics in here, there's a lot of questions that people were wondering that kind of get answered. A lot of them regarding card dynamics, population, supply issues, and then just kind of their plan in future for Parallel. And then the separate paper, the Echelon paper, goes into more of the prime token, which will be the play to earn aspect of Parallel. So I guess we could start from the top. I think the most interesting thing I saw was card dynamics, Chris. So if you scroll up a tiny bit, they have.
What page?
You're right on it. Go up to 7.
Oh,
So they're
The card
introducing.
continuum.
Yeah, they're introducing. Well, from my understanding, is they haven't fully decided on how they're gonna release cards in the future. Right now, they're going to do pack drop 3 in a new reservation system, as they've done the other 2 pack drops. But one of the things they looked at was a card continuum. So much like Top Shot, where they have edition size, they'll add to that edition size, but they'll mark it as a different one. So the first like 1,000 or 2,000 would be SE, and then the rest of them would be CC, which will make the game more affordable for people who want to get involved, but can't get these rare or maybe like best cards in the game.
Right?
yeah. So, and we saw that before where they already had some of these limited edition cards, and those have been speculated as in priced higher. So, Chris, do you think there's a benefit to hold the ones that are already limited, or do you think um, in the game people are going to want to collect more of these higher value or higher supplied cards because the ability to play within the game?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to need to buy the super expensive cards to participate in the game or even necessarily be good in the game. Again, I keep comparing back to like Pokemon. Like people still pay a lot for rare Pokemon cards, even though there's been several reprints. If you think like the base set Pokemon cards, they came out with a new base set that was slightly different, on the card than the ones made in 1999. They made a new set in 2016. So it seems like they're kind of doing a similar thing here where like, yeah, you're going to have these rare cards that are noted as first edition or special edition. But they'll make reprints of them so everybody can afford them and still be able to play the game.
Yeah, and I think that's huge too for the future of the game, like the accessibility, because there's so many cool cards that I look at that I want that there's no way I could own just because of how expensive they are. So
Yeah, and do you know in the specifics of like the gameplay? I know I was looking at that Yokai Kingdom one that recently came out. Um, is it going to be the idea where you create sets, or you like have a full deck and they randomize it before each game? Like, do you know what the specific dynamics of the in-game is going to be, John?
So they didn't release full dynamics on in-game. If you want to scroll down, I'm trying to find the page right now. I believe it's page 19. Um, they actually have kind of their introduction to gameplay and what they're going to do. So they haven't released full specifics yet on what each card will do in game and what the rare cards might do. But I think what's really important here is just the like as they keep reprinting cards and having more supply. Scroll down a couple more actually. Sorry. So there's the game board if you want to see it right below. But to be able to like build a deck, I think it's going to be like 30 or 40 cards. So increasing that supply will be huge, just because to play a game, I think you're going to need a lot of these like different cards. I don't know exactly what the requirements are to build a deck yet. Chris linked in the chat, they have a Paraset form. And this is something interesting that they talked about in the Echelon papers. You'll be able to stake certain NFTs for prime rewards, and full sets of Parasets will increase your rewards. So here you can put your wallet in. And I'm kind of interested, Chris, do you know how they picked Parasets?
Yeah, so like pack drop 1, like if you got all the cards from pack drop 1, that's a Paraset. Or pack drop 2, all the cards from pack drop 2 is a Paraset. Now you do got, like you've got first edition versus special edition within those pack drops. So they break it out into several different ones. You can have all the special editions, for example, from pack drop 1, and that's a Paraset that can then be staked. It may be 30 cards that you have all of them, then you can stake that set to earn the prime tokens. So that's kind of another benefit from buying these expensive cards right now, is that you're gonna there's gonna be a passive income type mechanic to it.
Yeah, so I think I know Parasets aren't probably required for gameplay because some of them are expensive, but it is a tool, that'll be good for early adopters who want to stake and hold sets of early edition cards.
Yeah, and I know that there were people early on that I'm pretty sure Andy 8052 he went in and collected the full set. There's a lot of those like completists that go in and collect the sets, and that's why I think just in general having that sort of paraset is going to make every card worth something, because there's going to be people that are constantly looking.
If you go back to that site, it shows you for each set what like the total cost is to complete that set. I think the
like
lowest one
in this page here.
Yeah, scroll to the top and then click Parasets right there, and then scroll down. It should be loaded. So you can see there's pack drop 1 Paraset and the floor price of each card, and so the total price of that one is 6.4. So like,
okay, and they have it split out,
but like it's not like 30 ETH or whatever. Some people can afford it.
Right. The lower edition counts, as you can see here, like this one is 20 for the first edition. And then the art cards are 140. Those ones are way more expensive, but that's because does that one include, is this on the Prime Key Rally? So it is cool to see like the difference in the cost of each set right here if you're like interested, and you can buy it complete. I wonder if, I mean, some people might put them as a full set in like the bundles on OpenSea or something like that. Now in this case, what's kind of interesting to me is the series 1, I guess you could call it like a series 1 versus 2 are relatively similar in prices. Do you think just in general, like the collector sets of the first drop are going to long term probably be better investments, kind of what you were saying with like Pokemon, like first edition cards, because right now it seems like they're
So
not too
yeah.
separate.
Well, really, everything that came out in Pack Drop 1 and 2 and even 3, they're all part of like this first parallel alpha. And then after alpha, then it's like card continuum 1. And then and that's where they start expanding out into these 100,000, 200,000 edition sizes. So I
Okay.
think everything like within Pack Drop 1 through 3 is going to be like, that's your first, set that's going to hold its rarity. Maybe the first 15 cards, hold a little bit more value than Pack Drop 3 cards, but in general, it's going to be everything like Pack Drop 1 through Pack Drop 3 that's considered the alpha set.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I didn't realize this.
I was gonna say,
Go
and
ahead, John.
To Chris's point too, a lot of the cards in the first pack drop, all their distribution is out. Like they minted most of the cards for all the packs at once. So in pack drop 2, they released some newer cards and then most of the supply of them, but they still have supply left for the third pack drop. So as more people get involved, I think the holders of the first have been around for so long and maybe bought it on secondary. So those definitely will probably just hold better value in that way. But anything from these first 3 pack drops, Chris is right, will be your initial like special edition first editions.
Cool. And then if I say, put my address in, it would highlight which of these I already have, and then it would basically show me, hey, you need these 3 left to complete the set, or however much. Because I think that's like the cool aspect of at least this page specifically, is there's so many cards out there and it's hard to keep track, but they're specifically telling you in here, here's the ones to collect that will merge together essentially, and that could be your full set. So then we could keep going on the prime proposal. Does this mesh into the Echelon white paper as well, or is that sort of like next steps, more roadmappy?
Yeah, so I think as a whole, the Prime proposal does a really good job of explaining, what each digital asset is. So as you're talking about before, the Prime keys and some of the other higher rare like cards, they have different use cases kind of. So the
Yeah.
Prime proposal kind of lays out their thoughts for just the game and what those utilities are, whereas the Echelon paper kind of talks about what the staking portion would be and the earning portion of using these cards. So they do
Okay.
kind of go hand in hand, but I think on the whole, the Prime proposal is just more gameplay.
Okay. And then before we switch to Echelon, there's one more I wanted to talk about, like with the game syncs in here
Mhm.
and the general like in-game mechanics of it. So how are they deciding with the game syncs, like to make this game long term basically manageable?
Yeah, you want to go, John, or
Yeah, I could take it.
Okay.
It in the article I screenshotted. Actually, they have a whole little table that has their main game syncs for tradable and non-tradable like NFTs or physical assets. So I think the idea, and they lay it out in a lot of depth in the Echelon paper, is that all the prime syncs, and if you want to go to number 4, that's where I have all of them. Uh, all the prime syncs, anything that costs prime in game, whether that's buying land or physical merchandise that are tied to your cards or leveling up your cards for different uses in game, all those will then go back into the reserve pool. And then as you play the game, if you want to scroll down actually right below it, you'll earn rewards from different gameplay types. So they laid out, there's a ladder mode, which is competitive gameplay. So you win a game, you earn prime. And then there's sectors, which is like a co-op where you try and beat, I would assume, computers or AI, where you'll earn prime, or a rookie queue for early players. So all these will kind of be, just one circle in the way that you earn it from playing, but then you'll also want to level up your cards to play better, or get physical merchandise because you like the game. They have a lot of different ideas and plans in the proposal. It's just whether or not they come to fruition and how well they're
Sure.
executed.
And I
Yeah.
think that this idea of like the ladder mode and like ELO in a lot of games, it's going to keep the competitive edge, and people want, if you lose a game and your ranking goes down, you're gonna want to play again and get your ranking back up. And that's what a lot of the NFT games right now are lacking in a way, is the like desire to keep playing and get like addicted to the game side. So I think having that is pretty important.
Yeah, just to add on to the game sinks. I mean, the best way to, I guess, kind of understand is when you're spending Prime tokens, like John mentioned, to upgrade your cards, whatever it may be. It's like all those tokens will essentially go in a pool, and then they all get redistributed either through like winning games, either parallel alpha, and this will kind of get into Echelon. Other game studios can develop within this kind of ecosystem, this Echelon ecosystem. And so you may win in some other games and receive Prime tokens for winning. And then we talked a little bit about staking and stuff. That too is where the Prime tokens going into this sync will get distributed to. And in the article that I have coming out, it shows, what percentage of Prime tokens get distributed where.
Yeah. So this article for those watching is available on luckytrader.com. It's the five key takeaways for Parallel Alpha's Prime proposal, and then John also has one on the Echelon white paper, and then Chris is working on an additional one. So we have tons of articles that's going to get deep into like the actual specifics if you're interested in it, because there's so much. Like these white papers are 40 pages long, and I personally don't want to read all of it. So that's why it's nice that these guys are coming together and really focusing on the specific things from it. So when you stake these cards, like say I bought that PD1 set and for 6 Ethereum, but I'm not really trying to play the game much, like would I just be able to stake all those, and then as other people play the game, I'm earning more tokens?
Yeah, it'll just be passive earning of tokens if you stake it. And that's honestly, I don't really have time to get too much into the game. I mean, maybe eventually I'll be interested in it, but that's probably what I would do, is just collect, stake, earn Prime tokens.
Yeah. It does seem like there's enough demand and people are super into the idea of this game that there will be enough players involved and people that get like super into the game mechanics as well to make this.
That's what needs to happen for it to, stay as a viable platform, right?
Yeah.
Any good game, right?
Well, I always kind of wonder that, because I look at Pokemon and I don't think of it as necessarily a good game. I know people play it, but I think the game here has to be good because the art, there's a lot of great art in the crypto space. So you kind of have to, like, Magic it's just because people really like the game. The art's nothing like too special in Magic the Gathering. So I think, this next month or two will be really interesting to see, how many
combo.
How many active users end up playing the game and how much they can actually push it forward.
Another thing that, this is just like speculation, but if you read some of the lore, the story kind of around it all, like it is pretty interesting, like where they could develop it into, like movies and stuff like Pokemon did. So that's something in the future that could really.
Yeah, they also, I don't know if you read it. I forget. I think it was in the Prime proposal. They talked about doing physical decks at like a cheap price. Almost like you'd go buy a Pokemon deck in a store or Yu-Gi-Oh deck or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know. As weird as that is to go like kind of the Gary V route, physical to the NFT, I think that could really onboard a lot of people when you just have them in stores all over the place and they're next to Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh.
And it's cool that the physical cards that you get also kind of are needed for AR as well. There's going to be a thing where you can use the physical cards in order to play the game in this augmented realities. But there's only just been some previews of that. I don't really know how that's all going to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this year will be super interesting because they have such great overarching. The AR test they showed looks really, really good.
Right.
But it's just utilization that'll be key.
Right.
And the funding. They have tons of funding, and that's been an issue with some of the games that come out, is the question on funding. But I'd say like Parallel is one of the higher funded NFT projects, like essentially came out and got the funding in 2021. So I think they seem like they have, good heads on their shoulders, and the team has worked in games before. It's not like one of these PFP projects that are like, oh, we should make a game, and then all of a sudden they find some random person. So
Yeah,
let's pivot into the Echelon paper.
I think that's a
Go ahead. What
perfect
were you gonna say?
segue. I think
Yeah.
a great segue because one thing that they did that I really like is they split the team and what we're heading into, the Echelon Foundation. So they have a parallel team just to build the game and worry about all that, and then the Echelon Foundation to deal with the governance and token and attracting new investors and new games into the space.
Yeah. So Echelon is so I guess what's the main difference between the Echelon white paper and Prime Proposal? One is like gameplay, and the other one is just the group.
Yeah, Prime Proposals more specifically with Parallel Alpha, that game, and then Echelon kind of shows Parallel Alpha is just one game within this like kind of company or whole ecosystem that's called the Echelon Prime Foundation. And then John, you can kind of expand more on that.
Yeah, and that's perfect. And the Echelon Prime Foundation is just going to kind of run and be a governance for the token and setting up other games within the suite, to utilize the token and add more game syncs and different, I would assume they probably want to move into first person or like a shooters or, stuff like that. But I think what I really like is they use Parallel as kind of a framework. So this is like their inaugural game that will kind of introduce Echelon ecosystem and how they want all the tooling to work. And then from there, hopefully other games join the platform if Parallel does well.
Yeah, so it's basically building it's a brand, and Parallel Alpha is going to be one of the games, the first game in the brand. So that goes back to what we were saying on like collecting the first set, is if the overall like say Activision, right? Like if you were invested in the first ever Activision game, and then Activision becomes massive brand bringing in millions of dollars a year, then obviously like we've seen this in the NFT space specifically, where like the first of becomes like really valuable and desired. So I think that's what's really cool about what they're doing and adding this Echelon component. So
I think
Chris, do you? Yep.
I was gonna say that's a really good analogy too. Like you could do Blizzard and Hearthstone, for example. Like Echelon would be Blizzard, kind of the overarching company or foundation, and then Parallel.
And you mentioned that
Hearthstone.
in here where the difference is they're building this framework right now versus like Blizzard, Epic Games. They've come out and it's like against their terms to have this sort of infrastructure in place where there's the buying and selling of NFTs and just the games in general. So it's cool that like they're starting as we are allowing this from the beginning. So Chris, do you think this is like the most bullish thing for me seems to be that they're planning on webbing into different games, because then they're focusing on Parallel, but they want to grow and be able to hop into different sort of like metas and game styles. Because for me, I think like card games likely work best in NFTs. Do you think that they're going to go into these sort of like first person shooter style games that might be a little more difficult in NFTs? Do you think that's like further down the road, or after reading about it, do you think that's something that we'll see in this year, 2022?
I don't know if there'll be like a first person shooter. I wouldn't say there would be one built this year in their ecosystem. I mean, it's worth noting that it's not just this team building within the Echelon infrastructure. They're gonna, any game studio that wants to build within their infrastructure like can and utilize their Prime token and stuff. In terms of like long term, I think if Parallel Alpha, the game, the trading card game, becomes this big IP, then like you're gonna hit big owning the early cards. I think if the Echelon whole ecosystem and infrastructure plays out to where a bunch of people are making games, within the Echelon Prime Foundation, there you're gonna want to have the Prime token. Then Prime token long term is where you're gonna see the returns.
Yeah, so let's talk a little about like this government's portion of the token. So if you're holding the token, you're able to decide things like what the next games are going to look like. How do you expect this government's token to work, John?
So they have a breakdown on the actual Echelon paper in the way back. It's actually really detailed, but I would assume so. They have a system here. I could find the page for you too. They have a system that they're going to put in place that puts up. Someone can do a proposal, and then if it gets 20% of the vote or something like that, it gets sent to the overall committee, and then everyone can vote on it. It's on page 34. So currently, yeah, right. You got to go all the way down there. Currently, they set forth this proposal without a DAO or a team or group all voting on everything. But in the future, under governance decisions, they have kind of this threshold that's going to be 20%. And then the proposal must secure 61% of the votes. I would assume they have a whole logarithmic formula that will determine how big your stake is. So depending on how many cards or Parasets or NFTs you have staked, it'll give you a certain percentage of the vote, and then you'll be able to vote on the system that way. So right now they don't have this in place, but that's why I said this year will be really interesting to see, because you'll be able to start voting on what games or changes to the mechanics in the games that you want to see.
Yeah, and I like that they're doing something like that with the people who are investing the most or have the most cards, like people that are getting into the game more get a higher percentage of it. So like that's obviously useful because that's going to get people to want to invest in the game, whether they're playing it or not. But I also like that the side of people playing the game to earn the tokens is there as well. So you can kind of do both. You can pick each side. You can kind of invest as much as you want, and you get a little piece of the pie.
So I found the actual breakdown too. If you want to go to the Prime proposal, page 32, they have voting on proposals. It says voting powers granted based on the amount of Prime a user is staking. Voters are calculated quadratically. So your first vote is for 1 Prime, then your second vote is worth if you have 4 Prime stake, so on and so forth. So I think they have a really good system that they're kind of setting up, that it'll kind of, it won't deter people from being whales and trying to take over the vote, but it kind of gives everyone, I'm pretty sure it says that the quadratic voting compresses the power dynamic between voters holding different amounts of Prime while still providing big holders a bigger voice. So I think they thought of, I swear, almost everything as I read through this, but it'll be implementation this year.
Yeah, and that's one issue we sort of seen with a bunch of games that are out there is like whales come in, they buy up all the supply, and then especially with like governance stuff, like they can then have too much of a say. So it is nice to be able to give, the smaller, those minnows out there, their ability to have some sort of word on like what's going on in the game. Um, so yeah, when it comes to this like distribution, and this might be back on the Echelon,
Oh
we
yeah, that.
saw yeah we saw that this breakdown, right? So
Mhm.
um it
Hold on.
basically, yeah, what was your thought on this? Because I know Andy also came out and was implying, he didn't specifically say, but um I think he was implying that a high percentage of the the token supply is going to be for team members, investors as well. Do you guys have any sort of take on if you think the percentage breakdown here, of who gets what piece of the pie in this, 111 million tokens, which is a fixed amount, which is great to see as well. But do you guys have any sort of problem, or like what was your initial reaction to this, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, I guess, really thought about it too deeply in terms of the allocations, but I mean, just first glance, I didn't really have a problem with it. Uh, if this becomes a huge, company or a huge game, I think anybody that's this early and gonna have, builds up prime tokens is gonna do well. But
Yeah, I saw Andy's tweet and I kind of agree with Chris. I didn't nothing struck me as too out of the normal when I looked at this, but I'm also not the best expert on allocation of initial prime launch or initial token launch like this. Uh, in my article, I did a little breakdown though. One of the things I like is the first percentage right there. You see 30% is already dedicated just to the PDE pool. So any of the emissions earned from gaming. So that's a good percentage, I think. The one thing Andy mentioned was that a decent amount went to the team. And I think he kind of oversimplified. If you look at the last four percentages, it has 15% to the Prime ecosystem founding team. So that's I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a decently big percentage, but then he lumped the rest of those percentages, like the token reserve 10% into that. And I think the token reserve is actually meant for prime emissions through staking. So it's more a part of the community's reserve than it is the actual founding team's reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Also, below that, they have 4.6 to the Parallel Studios token reserve. I think, again, that's kind of the same idea that's, although it is dedicated for the Parallel team in game, it's going to be meant for rewards and different things within the Parallel game.
So it might be closer to that, 30% is to the team and investors, and then this other 15% will eventually go back to like the players in the game and just in general.
yeah.
Because there are some of these games that come out on Solana. That was one of the issues with their DeFi land. That game had a pretty high percent that was going to those early investors, and the issue with that is they get in at a tenth, a 20th of the cost of everybody else, because they were the early investors before there was any sort of money in the system. And so they get like this huge amount of tokens that then they dump on the rest of the people that are trying to play the game. So I think that's where if the number, that percentage is too high, it could be scary to some people. But I
So
do think that they like break this out in a lot of different subsets. Like there's
it,
all these different specific staking
And
pools,
there's
which,
also, I mean, so this is the breakout of just the initial allocation.
right.
And then there's another breakout of these game syncs as people are spending the tokens, how that gets distributed, or that distribution is much more towards the players. It's like 65% back to the players.
yeah, and I also, to your point too about dumping on investors. They did. They kind of reiterated a few times throughout here is that all these initial allocations that they give to the team are subject to lockups, like a year lockup, and then they have to like vest, and it takes like months for them to get their rewards and stuff. So I think they're really trying to avoid all of that kind of any issues in that realm with the team having too much supply or dumping instantly or anything.
Yeah, the lockup period is very important with these things because to invest into it and knowing you're going to be locked up for a year, 4 years, whatever it is, and it's like a slow drip from there, then you're getting people that are seeing that and invested long term. And like that's what we're really looking for in this is we want people to stick around and be playing the game because we want the whole ecosystem to be um, benefiting from each other.
Yeah. Also, too, I forgot to mention this. One of the percentages that I liked was there's 6% of the initial allocation is just being airdropped to holders already. So I know it's not a ton, but it's cool that they're starting off with giving people at least some prime, if whether they want to stake it or sell it right away.
Now, it's that. Did they come out with a date on that, or is it already passed?
No, they have. Oh, for like a snapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it hasn't passed, but they don't have a date for it either. Most of the stuff regarding the initial allocation and prime launch was not necessarily vague. They just said in the near future. They don't have any timelines yet for it. So
Probably be sometime after Pack Drop 3, I would think.
that is
Yeah.
also my guess.
Yeah. So I was wondering. So Pack Drop 3 is February 26th, I believe.
Yeah, I can check that real quick.
26th or
And-
the 2nd, maybe.
It seems like they're trying
I
to
think
do
it's-
something a little different this time because in the past it had just been this click fest and you
Yeah.
had to be on in the first like 5 to 10 seconds in order to get one of the rare ones. And they had, there's 3 different packs of different rarities. Now, I think I read that it's going to be 1 pack per person now, and there's going to be more cards in them. So it seems like they're trying to get cards into more people's hands. Um, do you guys think that with this pack drop happening like next in let's just say it's a month from today, um, would you expect the game to be playable in Q1, like say in March, or is it going to be further out than that?
I think it'll be further out than that.
I also think it will be, but I know originally on their roadmap before the Prime proposal, they had a Q1 launch, but I think the timing's going to be close. That being said, though, it does seem when you go through the Prime proposal, they have a lot of the screenshots and kind of other like the staking UI done and everything. So could be close.
I mean, what I read is they're targeting sometime in 2022 for just an initial playable version, and they haven't even determined yet. Really, is it going to be a full release, or is it going to be a closed beta or an open beta? So
that's why,
that's
why I think I could see them dropping something a month or so around after Pack Drop 3, even if it is just a basic version of the game,
right?
Just to give people more, but. It's tough when they release 70 pages and they give a lot of information, but they don't give a lot of information.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about this staking. So basically any card in the game will be stakeable, right?
Yes. So it sounds that any what they're calling them is Echelon approved primary assets. So any digital card for Parallel or any future NFT for other games, you'll be able to stake to earn tokens.
Okay.
So
then,
I think it'll probably vary. The cheaper cards probably won't emit as much prime token, but it will be nice that even if you don't want to play the game, there'll still be some utility or resource for the actual NFTs.
yeah, and that will somewhat create like a supply squeeze in a way. If I don't have like specific numbers in front of me, but I think a lot of these staking games, I mean, at worst, there's going to be like 30% being
Mhm.
staked at a time or whatever. So, um, a lot of people are somewhat spooked by the high numbers in the supply on some of these cards. But I think if you're expecting people, like we said earlier with the gas fees, if someone has 10 of the same card, they're likely to be staking a chunk of those, and that is pulling away from the supply as well. So I think that's going to help with the pricing of some of these things. Um, is this all like the staking, the claiming stuff? Um, this is all going to be done on Ethereum, correct?
Yes. I know they haven't laid out the whole. They have, kind of the idea of the systems, and I forget some of the names, like what they called the system. It's not like bonds or something like that. But either way, I believe
Yeah.
the actual gameplay will be on just like internet protocol, so you won't have to pay to like gas fees to play the game. But any staking for their liquidity pool, I think, will be on Ethereum. Do not
Yeah.
quote me on that though.
The way I understood it is your NFTs live on Ethereum, and you'll like create your set of cards, and then say like your deck includes all your cards, right? Then you go onto a browser and you can connect your wallet to it, but the actual game, you're not making transactions on Ethereum. You're just playing the game like hosted elsewhere, kind of thing, like you mentioned, which I think is good. Now, Chris, do you think having this live on Ethereum, especially with the number of cards that are out there, and obviously with gas fees to acquire these cards, do you think at some point they should move off of Ethereum, or do you think it'll work on Ethereum as is?
I mean, yeah, I mean, if gas prices are always going to be this high and probably only get higher, then I think at some point they'll have to go to, Polygon or something.
Yeah, Polygon seems like the choice, and a lot of these are doing that. It's pretty simple to like um transfer it over. Like we saw that happen with the Crypto Raiders and a few other games out there. So that's always like the number one question with these is it going to survive on Ethereum? Because in a game, did it mention like how many rounds do you expect in a game? Like imagine having 100 Ethereum transactions just to play one game,
Yeah.
So I like that idea. That part was pretty bullish to me as far as like would the game work? Are they going to host it elsewhere? Um,
Oh,
let's
I
go
found.
over this bottom part. What'd you find?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, you're about to get to it. The faucet is the pack reservation system that we were kind of talking about, and the PRSYS,
Yeah,
where they're looking to cut back on. I think they're very aware of gas fees, so I
yeah,
wonder if they'll do something similar to try and help staking fees too. But the reservation will be for 24 hours, I think.
yeah. And I have some friends that are pretty big into Prime and um, Parallel Alpha is some of the only NFTs they even hold, and they're just like excited for the game. Part of that is because they went into that first pack drop, and I've noted, even though it was somewhat of like a click fest, like first come first serve. Um, at the same time, I think a lot of people's experience was it was still one of the better drops
Yeah.
and just minting experiences because it was more of a reserve system, and you didn't have to pay all this gas fee. You could pay whenever gas fees are low, and that side of it, like you said, like they seem like they know what's going on and they understand like we don't want people to be paying all of these gas fees just because we're on Ethereum.
Did you guys get packs in either of the first two drops?
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
got the
wasn't
one and
around for the
two.
first one, but I did on the second.
Yeah, I'm interested to see because I last time they had. I don't know if you guys had this issue, but you try to reserve like a rare pack and a common pack. Or I forget what they call
Yeah.
them. And then it would kick you out if they didn't have enough rares, even if they had enough commons.
Yeah.
And they addressed that issue. They said that they were going to change how that worked in the coding. So hopefully this time around that doesn't happen, but we'll see. I think they want to kind of branch out and let everyone maybe just get one kind of thing.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I forget which order, but I got a 330 and a 300. I think in the 2 backdrops.
Wait,
so I haven't gotten
is that commons
it's like
first, right?
common,
Yeah,
second most common, then the
Even in the
rare.
comments, I think you could get like legendary cards and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like a lower
I think that's what I
percent.
got was I think I got 3 common packs, but I got like 1 legendary in it.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, which that was the cool part of it too, where I mean the prices were also like amazingly
Super
cheap
low, yeah.
for the fact that
commons,
like
right.
it was 0.01, I think, or
Yeah.
something for like a pack of 3 cards, and all the cards go for like 0.02, which the initial people the first time around were like, oh, this is great. Like I can flip 0.01 into like 0.2 real quick.
Yeah.
But then people started like looking into the game and they're like, ooh, now I want to buy back in, which I think that was the part to me that was like very exciting, where there was still this demand. Once people realized why are people so into this game and they dug a little deeper, then they're like, well, now I want those cards back. But the hard part that people always ask me, and is there an easy way to know like which cards to buy? Like which cards you're going to want? Like do they have any setup of like stylistic builds at all yet?
Not exactly. I mean, they basically said right now nobody's going to know what cards are the strongest. They don't want to put that out yet until they've done more testing and everything.
Yeah.
I just know like to build a 40 card deck, you can only use cards from a single parallel. So like one parallel, for example, is the Shroud. So all 40 of your cards either need to be a Shroud card or they have universal cards as well. So it has to be either a mixture of Shroud and universal. But in terms of strength and everything, nobody
I think a
really
lot of
knows
people
which ones to buy.
a lot of people wanted that in the prime proposal and Echelon papers to give like an exact this card's going to do this, and then everyone would flood to buy specific cards. But right now they just keep it under wraps, which I think is a good idea, until the actual gameplay is released.
Yeah. So what do you think? Let's say, because we always get this question. Let's say someone has like half an Ethereum to spend, 2 Ethereum to spend, 5 Ethereum to spend. At each of those levels, let's go with you first, John. Like, what would you recommend? Like buying just a few in bulk, trying to find specific ones, going for like low supply or high supply? Like, what would you recommend at? Let's just start with the half an Ethereum people want to spend just a half to start with.
Okay, so I think there's a few routes you could go, and especially with all the papers that got dropped this week, there's probably even more routes now. You could look up and try and finish like a set or something that you might be close to if you have a higher end budget that might then end up netting you more prime rewards from staking. But personally, for me, I think these cards are really like cool to look at, and the different factions that Chris was talking about, like Shroud and Earthen, and they have like different sets. I think it'd be fun to go and buy multiples of cards from either one set that you like. So I really like the Shroud set. I think they look really cool. And then just try and like stock up on maybe the lower end ones, because I think these are all still the first pack drops, right? So even though some of the cards are priced pretty low, eventually they'll probably be worth, more just as they change the looks to card continuum or the lineage system. So I would say buy multiples of smallers that you really like.
So if I brought this up here, where would I search to find the Shroud?
So if you go scroll down left on the details, they should have parallel under the filters.
Do you know what's up with the filters on OpenSea? They seem like they're all messed up.
I mean,
parallel.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they have this like double filter going on.
All right.
Yeah,
It'll probably get cleaned up at some point.
So click Shroud because that's one of my favorite ones. So you can see, right? They have these first few that are all gold and they're cheaper, and then you have this blue hollow one that's an SE. So I would say already, you that SE's like a little lower price than some of the other ones. That's a special edition.
Yeah, I would
They'll
buy the SCs over the first editions.
exactly. So I think these look really cool. They have, that kind of like hollow look. Uh, this one, 1.2K owners of 1.5 out. I think they probably still have some left for packs, but most of the supply's already out. So, this price is probably relatively stable for now. If
Yeah,
more
and,
people
and the
get into
SE
it.
means there won't ever be more than 15,000. But
Mhm.
those other ones they could add to down the road.
And another thing I found when I was writing my article is with SC, it's going to be when it comes to like claiming the physical cards. SC, you have to own the NFT to get a physical card, whereas like first edition ones, I think anybody can like buy physical cards.
Yeah,
I may
that'll
be
be.
wrong on that, but
No, I think you're right on that. As they release the non-special editions, it'll be like you could buy it at a pack at a store kind of thing. Whereas
Yeah.
the SEs you'll have to like tie to your digital one, which is something
And
cool too.
that's
They have a system set up where you can check once they start doing the physical redemptions, where you can check if the NFT that you're buying or the card you're buying has already been redeemed. So
that's where the QR codes here come into play, right?
I would assume they'll probably end up tying that in with everything. But I want to say the QR codes has a lot to do with what they're planning on doing with AR and being able to like play the game in augmented reality in front of you. But yeah, I just love
So
the
you'd
art
say
on these cards.
just go basically, and I know a lot of these will have the SE as well as CC. Would you recommend like buying one of each or spreading it out and say like buying this row of SEs that are all under Shroud, or like do you expect there to be that sort of correlation where if all your cards, if you have 10 shrouds, it's probably better than having, six that are shrouds and, a few different ogging cores and all these other items?
I think it won't. It depends on what you want. If you want to play the game, I think it'll be more advantageous to just get a set, because then you'll probably be able to have bonuses or there'll be like ease of access to play because you bought from like the same set. But if you just like the art and you want to just stake them to earn prime, you could just buy the ones that you like, or maybe you see something that's undervalued. Because there's like perfect loops and like different. What is this one? This one's a card back, right? So you maybe find opportunities in other ways, but if you're looking to play the game, I think sticking to a set is probably going to be your best bet.
Yeah.
I
And like
think
we saw before, it was like a full set that works in the Parasets. The cheapest was like 6 Ethereum. So that's more so if you're trying to make a bigger investment.
I might too want to wait till like after Pack Drop 3 comes out, because I know like when Pack Drop 2 came out, everything went down in price because the supply increase.
Right. Like people buy in at this cheap entry point and just flip it real quick. They don't care about it. They just like want the money back. So it does seem like each time a pack drop has happened, that's been the best time to buy as well.
Right.
So maybe look at these and you could follow them for the next like week or two and see if there's good entry points on them. But more likely than not, since it's going to be increasing supply on a lot of them, and there's people that really aren't trying to play the game, they're trying to flip it real quick. Like if you're interested in these long term, then yeah, just watch, try to find ones that maybe you theory craft a set and wait to buy and hope that the prices come down a little bit.
Yep.
Agree. Yeah, it's sad that people are in it for that, but it creates opportunity too. If you don't get a pack, definitely some cheap cards to get out there after.
Yeah, and that comes with like the cheap entry point on these set like card sets and the fact that it is pretty complicated and people don't want to get into, reading 80 pages of something to figure out like which card they got, how it's going to be good. And like we said, a lot of that information is not even available yet. So some people just look at it as if, oh, I spent 0.05, I could sell this for 0.3, and they get out quickly like that. So cool. I think this has been a pretty good breakdown, a little intro for people. Today we're about at an hour, so it's been pretty good timing wise. But
Yeah.
is there anything else that you guys in specific you think we missed and you want to tell anyone?
No, I just say go check out John's articles on the prime proposal and Echelon paper, and then I think in a few days I kind of have a more general overview, I would say, of Parallel Alpha if you're interested.
Yeah, and where can they find you? I know that at Piston.
Yeah, you can find me on
Twitter?
Twitter. Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Piston2x. Yeah, find me on YouTube as well. Also, Piston2x, starting that up recently.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Yeah.
You're gonna be live streaming these games when they come out, whenever they come out?
Probably not. I don't think I'll be getting into the gaming portion of this. Yeah, we'll see though. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe soon we can play some games on stream like we did for Raiders. Who knows? But yeah, read my articles, read Chris's when it comes out, and hop over to Parallel site, check it out. Just get a feel for it. It's fun.
Cool. Yeah, and those articles are all going to be available on luckytrader.com. If you guys liked this video, definitely give us a like and subscribe below. And we try to do something like this each Friday, sort of these intros to different games, what's going on just in the general markets, because I think a lot of people want to dive into this stuff but don't know where to start, or it seems like a high entry point in a lot of these games. I think the parallel entry point has come down a little bit since that last drop where it was on massive hype. But I think this prime proposal coming out and giving a little more details has gotten people sort of back into it. So it's definitely a good time to be looking. And like we said, look out for that. In a month, we'll have more specifics. I'm sure we'll talk about it on one of our streams leading up to that week. And so we'll be back on Monday. We do our week ahead on NFTs, me and Logie. And then Thursday nights we'll stream. We do like Lucky Trader Lounge. Yesterday we had a pretty good one with the guys from the incubator that Chris is a part of as well. So yeah, definitely catch us next time and follow us at all of our Twitters are below if you're interested in following and staying up on this type of thing. So thanks for coming on today, guys, and we'll have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys next time.